What have I gotten myself into? Oh no. Wait a minute. Holy shnikes. That worked! It worked! Aloha and welcome to this week's video. So this week I'm going to be working on the stone section of the neva, which is the Hawaiian war club, and the top section of the war club is made of this lava rock. In Hawaii it'd be basalt. I don't know what type of lava rock this is. It could be basalt. I have no idea. It was just a chunk that I found in my backyard. If you saw my last video, I actually broke it down to the size that you see here. So I've already done quite a bit of work on it, but now I have to shape it. It is just a big, massive clump that is way too large. And the funny thing is I wasn't ended up going to use the hammer just because of the amount of work that it would take, but it ended up being pretty beneficial. So I would kind of scrape away with this cutter. So this is a diamond disc cutter that I have on my angle grinder, and it worked for cutting. It didn't work so well for shaping, and so I would go back and forth between cutting sections and then hammering them off. So kind of using the hammer to more efficiently shape. The piece was way too large. I already knew it was from the beginning, and so I decided I was just going to go ahead and remove a big chunk off the top. I'm not too worried as of this point in time because I might end up removing some more. I tried splitting it with a piece of wood. Obviously the wood was way too soft and it didn't split, but I was able to still fracture it right around where I'd done that, and then just got back to hammering. This was insane. So I spent an enormous amount of time going back and forth between the hammer and my cutting disc, and the entire time I couldn't help but think about the stone workers that would work on stone traditionally, both in Hawaii and various other places. But in Hawaii especially, just because they didn't have metal tooling for almost the entirety of their duration until they came across Western influences, which means that they did all of their stonework by hand, which is just insane, unbelievable. I can't imagine how long this would have taken to do 100% by hand. It's just very impressive. However, while I was taking a break, because I think I was working on this for probably a few days, and I wasn't getting nearly enough into it as I was hoping. I was hoping that after just a couple days I've gotten to a good shape and I could start working on the club again, but it wasn't happening. It was just taking so long. I wasn't able to shape enough of it at a time using the diamond blade cutter as well as the hammer. It's a very, 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 very slow process. And so I was starting to get worried, thinking that this is going to take me, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 weeks just to finish this one piece, which is way too long. I mean, I have done pieces that have taken me close to a month to finish, but they were much larger pieces, much more expansive pieces. And so I just kept working on it, hoping that maybe I'd be able to get a trick for it or get a knack for it. I was starting to get a little bit pleased with the shape. The shape was starting to come into play. I was starting to recognize, the design that I was going for. And so I was really happy with that. But at the same time, I have so much material left to remove. It's so heavy as of this point. It's just an absolute monster. So you can see the shape that I'm going for where it flails out. And it's more like a Western style, like a European style flail or warhammer, or not a warhammer, but mace. So while I was at Home Depot, I needed to get some sanding discs and a few other things. I saw this. This is a diamond grinding disc, or it's really like a shaping disc. So it's meant for hitting metal and hard materials and tile. And so I bought it. It was kind of expensive. It was like $50. But the amount of time I've been spending on it, I figured if it works, it's worth it. And man, was this awesome. It worked beautifully. I couldn't be more happy with how well this thing worked. It cut just absolutely perfect. It was exactly what I was hoping the diamond cutter was going to do. But the diamond cutter is really not made to shape the way that I was using it for. It's really made to cut. whereas this is a shaping disc. So it's made for what I'm doing, how I'm working with it, and it worked absolutely beautiful. The only downside, as you can see, it just turned up a ton of dust. And so I have my respirator on, I have my safety glasses on, I've got my air filters on. In fact, you can see the dust getting pulled to the right. That's because of the massive air filter that I built a long time ago. It's right next to me on the desk. And then I have the door open, which is the light you see in the back, and the garage is slightly open so I get a draft. And it's just enormous amounts of dust accumulation from working with this diamond sanding disc. But it worked beautifully. Like, I was able to actually shape the same way that I do with coil wood. And so the same techniques that I use with wood, I was able to use on here. The only difference is because it's a harder material, I had to go a lot slower with those shaping practices, but I was still able to implement a lot of the same techniques that I've learned over the years. So here I'm just keeping track of this section here. This is going to be inset just a little bit into the handle of the hammer. You can see here it's starting to come into place. It's starting to look much better. It's still a little bit too large. It's too long. And so I will be cutting off the top section of that. I was wanting to shape it down a little bit more before I cut it off, just to make sure that I don't cut off too much. So once I got it to a good spot, from there I decided I'd go ahead and mark it and get it ready to cut. Man, there's so much dust in the area. You can see just me cleaning off the lens there. So I went ahead and marked it. I just used a Sharpie and kind of eyeballed it. I'm cutting off about 3/4, maybe 5/8 of an inch, close to an inch off of the bottom. And I already went around and scored it with the cutting blade. And then now I'm coming back here with my hammer. I'm hoping to just sever it right along that score line that goes all the way, that goes about an inch through, all the way around. It wasn't quite working as well until I flipped it vertical and started hitting it downwards, and then it just popped right off. It was perfect. It's exactly what I was hoping it was going to do. It did leave a little bit of section in the middle that I needed to clean up, but using this disc here, this diamond disc, it worked beautifully. I mean, even if I never use this diamond disc again, it was totally worth the purchase for even this one project. Just to goes to show how expensive some of these projects can get. You never expect to spend as much time as you think or use the material as you do, but it happens. So here I'm just marking the sections along the entire piece, and these are going to be grooves that go through the club head, and the purpose of this is to house the lashing. This is so that when you swing it and move it around, the lashing never really comes in contact. It's protected by the stone. It also helps the lashing stick in place so it doesn't slide off, it doesn't move around. It's stuck inside of these grooves. And so I went ahead and made these grooves pretty deep. I'll probably end up making them deeper. I have a tile knife or a grout knife. I'm going to try to use that to see if I can clean up those grooves afterwards. But for right now, this is where I'm at with it. Man, does that look awesome. I am totally pleased with the way that that's looking. It looks absolutely beautiful. And so the next step here is I'm going to be cutting out where this is going to inset. Now, it's not going to be insetting very deep. It's going to be relatively shallow, maybe 1/4 of an inch at the deepest. And the reason that I'm doing this is it just gives it like a little footer for the the hammer at the top to rest into, and it just makes it sit on there a lot cleaner, a lot nicer, and it'll make it lash a lot better. And this is actually traditional. They would do this. They would inset that top piece just a little bit into the wood, so it gave it something to seed into. Because of how long I spent on the stone head here, this is all I have time for this week. But man, this piece is turning out to look pretty awesome. I'm super excited. It's going to be a ton of fun to test. Hope I don't break it on the first swing. If you liked the video, go ahead and give a like and subscribe. Leave a comment below. I really enjoy comments on the pieces. Mahalo plenty for everyone that has followed along, and I will see you next time. Aloha.